all that good stuff, and let's do this.
Oh yeah. I need I need to set you up so you see what's going on. And good morning. We're live. Okay. Yeah. It's Tuesday. Means we're gonna talk about some stuff. Or whatever. Apparently my title sequence is broken this morning, so hell with that. Let's talk about some stuff that's going on though. There's two things going on that are trending hot topics because, well, menial, mind-numbing bullshit right now is apparently more important than a school shooting if the shooter wasn't white and toting a black rifle.
Or Hong Kong protests.
How is that not something that we're talking about in the freaking news, man? I mean, we've talked about it on this show quite a bit, and it looks like it's heating up over there. I'm waiting to see some more activity before I dig into it. But today we're going to talk about this asshole. Uh, 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 I mean, what a steaming pile of crap. I Cameron, you want to talk about how it went down with the film crew and the liability waiver and all?
Okay, so long, complicated, unnecessary amounts of drama condensed down to a few sentences. Colin Kaepernick has claimed for some time that he wants to be back in the NFL, that he's good enough to be back in the NFL, and so a workout was arranged. Locally, the Falcons even helped him out, let him use their training facility in Flowery Branch. Kaepernick wanted to bring some of his own people with him for obviously publicity reasons. And anyhow, there was a
Well, to be
problem.
clear, when you say he wanted to bring his own people, he wanted to bring a private film crew.
Yes, and there was something with a liability waiver and the NFL because they're largely a media company. Let's say yes, they play football, but they make their money in broadcasting football. And so they want to tightly control, what gets filmed with regard to professional football. And there was some issue with his film crew. So Kaepernick said, screw you. I'm not going to do the workout in the Flowery Branch facility. And they drove about 60 miles away to another facility. There were 25 teams that were ready to be in attendance at Flowery Branch. When they drive to Site B, they're now down to just 5 teams in attendance to see the workout. And Kaepernick shows up. He's wearing a Kunta Kinte shirt. He turns the whole thing into his normal, self-aggrandized, egotistical brand enhancement, I guess, for lack of a better word. And it was all just a mess. He claimed that he wanted to do it all for reasons of transparency and stuff like that, but who even knows with this guy? It's honestly a shame because he is an incredibly talented athlete. I could work my ass off every day of my life, and I would just never be able to put up the kind of statistics this guy can put up in an off day. And yet, he's not with the NFL. And it's because of stuff like this. It's because everybody bent over backwards and said, okay, we'll give you another shot. And then, like a spoiled brat, I mean, you want to talk about the princess and the pea. That's this right here. He blows it. And our working theory, and apparently it's not just us, but our working theory is he doesn't actually want to play football anymore, no matter what he says. And even if he does want to play football, he wants it to be 100% on his terms, which is just not going to happen. And so I think this whole thing was just a stunt because white patriarchy bad and police officers assault people and all that other garbage that seems to come along with this guy. I'll say this, though. Kaepernick is right. but for entirely the wrong reasons. He's right in the sense that he's extremely talented, and the system has, in some ways, conspired against him to keep him out of a quarterback position in the NFL. But it's not because white people hate black people. It's not because capitalism is bad or whatever. It's because if you're going to go play a team sport, you have to be a team player. And this guy is not a team player. No matter how good he is, the question you have to ask yourself, is he good enough to offset all the controversy and bullshit that's going to come along with putting him on your football team? Like, it's because of this man. This was his stuff with sitting during the national anthem and then getting other players to kneel and protest during the national anthem and all of that. This is why I quit watching professional football. I enjoy football. I think it's a brilliant game. There's a lot of drama that's inherently there in the sport. And for me personally, even if it's politics I agree with, I don't want the politics in my football game. I want it to be an American sport played by mostly American athletes who play at the highest level possible. And if every single time I watch football, we have to have a discussion, a conversation about all the evils of America, well, gosh, that just doesn't sound appealing to me at all. Professional sports is basically escapism at the highest level. You are watching a fantasy because you're never going to be good enough for that football team. But you can get behind a team. You can watch them play. And the brilliance in professional sports is, let's say your team breaks your heart. Well, there's always next year. And if they break your heart next year, there's always the year after that. It's not like a personal relationship where if I break Chris's heart, that could just be the end of our friendship forever. See, sports are so different. But as soon as you bring the real world into it, as soon as you shatter the fourth wall, break the illusion, it's no longer a fantasy, it just loses so much appeal.
Well,
So when I say, is this guy's controversy worth it? Is it worth it, the fact that he himself has literally already cost the NFL my eyeballs?
yeah, and like you said, I think a lot of this is Kaepernick doesn't want to play football anymore because it's work. It's hard damn work. He's only ever going to, from this point forward, at best, he would only ever be a backup quarterback. Which could still pay a lot of money. But the low end, on the low end, the backup quarterback pays about $2 million. At the highest paid backup quarterback in the NFL right now is on a $10 million contract. But that was like $10 million for 3 years, I think. His Nike contract is worth $5 million a year.
Yeah.
I think he would rather just continue to have the Nike contract, and this whole stunt was about the only way he keeps the Nike contract is by getting back in the NFL, because Nike didn't hire a spokesman. They hired a spokesman who is a football player. And the fact of the matter is, Colin Kaepernick hadn't been a football player in 3 years. Hadn't been a relevant football player in nearly 6 years.
Yeah, he was basically done in 2014. I mean, that was the rather infamous season.
So this little deal here, he needs to look like he's trying to play football and the stars are aligned against him so that he can keep being the Nike guy. Because more and more people just don't care what this guy has to say. In fact, more and more, I think it's going to be the case that he's going to start hurting Nike. Like the Betsy Ross flag thing, I'll never buy another pair of Nikes. And not because I have any particular feelings about the Betsy Ross flag or that controversy in particular, but because I don't want to spend my money with a company that spends their money on this kind of grandstanding. Even if Kaepernick happened to be supporting issues that I agree with, and I know this is a little bit there's a lot of speculation going on in this statement, but well, no, there's not either. I don't buy supplements from Alex Jones. I don't. I find him obnoxious as a personality. And if that's, if you're putting asshole on my shoes, I'm not interested. I'll go run with a New Balance. Not that my fat ass runs anymore, but you know what I mean. Well, and I've got the clip pulled up here. We were going to play it and rag on it a little bit, but we're already 11 minutes in, and I don't want to run over time this morning. So why don't we go ahead and just switch over? You want to go ahead and flop over to the other topic?
Yep.
All right. This one breaks my heart. Guys. Chick-fil-A is ending donations criticized by LGBTQ activists after years of backlash. Okay. I am not taking a stand against LGBTQ here. That's not the thing that bothers me here.
Yeah, nuance, people, nuance.
You go ahead and level your that I'm homophobic or whatever criticisms. If you've watched my show or if you know me personally, you know that statement is a bald-faced lie. I am an LGBTQ ambivalent. I just don't care what people do, as long as they don't try and force me to do something about it. So what the problem here is, what aggravates me here is, Chick-fil-A, the headline is not Chick-fil-A is ending donations criticized by LGBTQ. The headline here is Chick-fil-A has caved to the pressure of a terrorist organization with a very specific political agenda and a very specific set of economic terrorist attacks. I find it especially obnoxious because Chick-fil-A was winning this one. Their sales have nearly doubled since the beginning of the since the beginning of the alphabet bitching. Their sales have nearly doubled. Chick-fil-A's fans stuck with them. And there's several organizations mentioned, and this is one of the reasons that I find it so obnoxious. What the claim is that Chick-fil-A is an anti-LGBTQ company because it donates to anti-LGBTQ organizations, including the Fellowship of Christian Athletes and the Salvation Army, two organizations that have been criticized by the alphabet people. Neither of these, the way the stories are told and the way the protesters try to spin it and frame it, the claim that they're making is that Chick-fil-A supports groups that actively fight against gay marriage currently. Now, the Salvation Army, Christian Chick-fil-A, the groups may have lobbied or donated to lobbying against the passage of Obergefell, which I've talked about Obergefell many times on this show, and I don't care what you think about gay rights. Actually, no. Let me correct myself. Most especially if you are pro gay marriage, you should be horrified by the Obergefell decision that forced gay marriage into law in this country. But that's a whole other rabbit trail. If you don't understand what I'm talking about there, you should go and study that. If you or somebody you love is a part of that community and that issue is something that touches them very personally, you should be horrified by the way that gay marriage was forced into law in this country. And without going into too much detail on that, largely because it was done so incorrectly within the confines of the law that it is very, very vulnerable to revisitation and repeal in the future. Now, none of these organizations that Chick-fil-A is supporting are doing like anti-gay conversion therapy shock treatment crap like the Dems would have you believe that Chick-fil-A. If you're looking at the craziest people who are doing these protests, they'd have you believe that Chick-fil-A has freaking electric chairs in the back of the store that they drag people into to try and shock the gay away, and it's just obviously not the case. So, to be very clear, in this context, and generally, when people say anti-alphabet people, what they mean is Christian. The narrative that they're spinning, the narrative that they're attached to, is that Christianity, unlike Islam, is a hate group. That you cannot be a Christian without necessarily being a member of a hate group. And I mention unlike Islam because, of course, if you're a Muslim, you are... So a Christian says that homosexual activity is sinful. A Muslim says that homosexual activity should be exterminated. Now, this bizarre notion that being a Christian is the same as belonging to a hate group, that essentially Christianity is being a member of the KKK or the Nazi Party. It's just that your in-group identity is Christian instead of Ubermensch or Democrat. It's a bizarre notion, and it should not be tolerated. It breaks my heart to see that Chick-fil-A crumbled under the pressure from these terrorists.
The question is why? I mean, why? Okay, so they donate money to the Salvation Army, an organization that does things like give kids presents at Christmas time and actually literally passes out blankets and cold weather and stuff like that. Like, okay, so the Salvation Army is basically a Christian organization, and as a Christian organization, they believe that, the purpose of marriage is procreation, and, kind of by default, you have to have a man and a woman engaged in a committed monogamous relationship to have the best chance at successful procreation and all of that good stuff. You can disagree with that. In fact, there's this bizarre thing that has happened in our culture where if you are pro-Christian, you're somehow anti all these other things. Well, you just don't like the gays. And no, obviously that's not it at all. And there's also this bizarre thing where if you disagree with a behavior, you automatically think the other person is a bad person. Like, I actually think, for example, that atheism is a deeply flawed way of thinking, and it is a form of faith, no matter what the atheists would have you believe. But that does not mean that I hate atheists. It does not even mean that I think atheists are dumb. I'm a big fan of Sargon of Akkad. I think the dude is obviously highly intelligent, but he's an atheist, and I disagree with him on that. But it doesn't mean I hate Sargon. And for some reason, we live in this bizarre parallel universe where, oh, if this, then that. Well, you're a Christian, so you're hateful. But no, that's not it at all. And I don't understand why Chick-fil-A caved here. And not just because of the money, but because of the principle behind it. I mean, we're talking about a fried chicken place that's closed on Sundays. Like they're literally giving themselves a handicap of 52 popular days a year in which to sell fried
Yep.
chicken, and that they don't sell fried chicken, and they're doing it for a specific moral reason. They are making a sacrifice and it has paid off in spades for them. Dude, they wouldn't even hire him as a water boy. Like at this point, he's not worth it. I dare say Tom Brady wouldn't be worth it if he came with all this bullshit attached to him. Like it just is what it is.
And we didn't even get into all the Rodman stuff, but Chick-fil-A.
But why did they cave? Like I'm really curious as to what your theory is, because as for my thinking, I've gotten as far along as Truett Cathy is dead, and so one of his children or grandchildren made this decision. But even with that being said, like if Chick-fil-A is going to cave, man, open on Sundays and just basically put every other fast food company in the world out of business. It'll be like Demolition Man, where Taco Bell won the fast food
the franchise wars. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple things going on there. There are several airports which are controlled by largely Democrat municipal organizations. You know, like the Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. The Hartsfield-Jackson Airport is owned by well, sort of. It's a bizarre amalgamation of private and government ownership. And that's just part of the thing. There is, as a business decision, Chick-fil-A wants to have their restaurants in airports, and I don't blame them for that. That's fair. As to this bizarre targeting, there are not enough people in the world, I hope, that are stupid enough to understand it the way that the narrative portrays it. I could be wrong about that. That may be my naive faith in humanity coming through. But here's what's really going on. It gets spun the way it does so that the company gets attacked for being anti-LGBTQ, because the organizations that the company donates its money to, Chick-fil-A is supporting the Salvation Army that gives blankets to cold homeless people. They're supporting a Christian athletic youth group. They're supporting things that do the things that the government would prefer to do. And so, a Democrat that hates anybody doing anything without the government doing it for them, I think that's what this is. I think the LGBTQ movement, right? Not gay people, not trans people, not queer people. The LGBTQ civil rights movement, which is a sham as of Obergefell, since they're not fighting to fix that failure. It is just like Black Lives Matter, the Ku Klux Klan, Antifa, the Black Bloc, Planned Parenthood. It's another terrorist organization that is part of the Democrat maneuver to try and socialize and eventually consume all private industry. They cannot stand that corporate groups like Chick-fil-A, they cannot stand that the free market solves all problems better than they could ever hope to. And so, they're attempting to murder the chicken man, because they don't want him to give blankets to poor people.
Okay.
Every time a private group gives blankets to poor people, a government bureaucrat isn't getting paid to spend your money. And every time a private organization does a good thing, it is better than the best thing that a government organization could do. I can go and buy a homeless man a meal. If the government feeds him, they have to pay somebody to spend that money after they've paid somebody to confiscate that money. And then they have to pay somebody to figure out how to pay the guy that confiscates the money. Every dollar that is spent by a government agency costs $3 in administrative fees. And that's probably a very conservative estimate.
So I'm actually going to toss it to our viewers. If any of you have any theories as to Chick-fil-A's motivation, as to why they caved, please leave it in the comments section, because this one has me baffled. I'm puzzling through it, and I could put some pieces together, and I think a large part of Chris's analysis is part of it. But the thing that just confuses me is Chick-fil-A seemed to be above it. In fact, Chick-fil-A getting attacked seemed to redouble their brand loyalty. And so you could even make the argument that now people like Chris and I are so disappointed in this decision, it's actually going to make us less likely to eat Chick-fil-A. So why? So if any of you dear viewers have a theory as to what their thinking was, how they did that math, please drop us a comment and let us know.
All right. That's all I've got this morning.
That's all I've got this morning. Wake the hell up. Go to work. Take care of your family.
Be safe out there. Talk to you soon. We still didn't tease the new video.
Well, whoops.